Hello again. In the first video about advanced audio settings, we have been labeling our inputs and outputs. We have defined which inputs and outputs belong to a stereo pair, and we have defined which inputs should go to which outputs. On top of those essential settings, we have a couple of extra settings which can be used to change the sound of our inputs and outputs, and more important, settings which can be used to protect the speakers connected to our outputs from being damaged by overload. Let's first have a look at the Output Crossover Limiter tab. A limiter is a protection device which is used to make sure the level of a certain output will never be higher than a chosen maximum. This maximum is called the threshold. The maximum level that can be applied to a speaker to make sure that it keeps working happily for a long period of time depends on the amplifier which is connected between the Liviau S and the speaker, and it also depends on the amount of speakers which are fed from the same amplifier and how those multiple speakers are connected. So there is a bit of amplifier datasheet reading and calculation to do here to find out the maximum audio level which can be applied to your specific amplifier to keep your speaker system happy. The maximum acceptable audio level that your speakers can handle should be specified as an absolute dBu value, which can be set with the Liviau's threshold slider. Other limiter parameters available are attack and decay time. The attack time is the time it takes for the Liviau to start limiting the output signal if the limiter threshold has been exceeded. For maximum protection, this time should be kept as short as possible. The decay time is the time it takes the limiter to stop working after the signal has fallen back below the limiter threshold. The action of the limiter can be monitored at any time by looking at the above threshold indicator. This indicator will light up every time the signal level exceeds the value defined by the threshold control. Now let's have a look at the right-hand side of this window, where we find a set of filters which are part of our output crossover section. An output crossover is basically comprised of a set of two filters which can be used to chop off a part of the audio signal which is not relevant for a specific output destination. For example, in the dance zone we have a stereo speaker system and an additional mono subwoofer. Since the subwoofer is handling all the bass sounds, there is no point in feeding it all the high frequencies as well. And even better, we don't need to feed the bass frequencies into the stereo speaker system. So what we see here are a high-pass filter at the top and a low-pass filter at the bottom. The high-pass filter at the top only allows the high frequencies to pass through it, hence it's also sometimes called a low-cut filter. The low-pass filter at the bottom only allows the low frequencies to pass through it, hence it's often called a high-cut filter. We can choose the cutoff frequency of the filters by sliding over the vertical bars. The values are indicated in Hz and can be set anywhere between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz. By selecting one of the four options from the menu on the right, we can define if one, both or none of the filters are active. All pass means that all frequencies are passed through to this specific output. Both of the filters are disabled. High frequency means that this output will only receive the high frequency content. The high pass filter is active and all of the low frequency content is cut off up to the selected high pass frequency. Low frequency means that this output will only receive the low frequency content. The low pass filter is active and all of the high frequency content starting from the selected low pass frequency and above is cut off. Mid frequency means that only the middle frequencies will be sent to this specific output. This is done by activating both the high pass and the low pass filters. So all frequencies below the high pass filter and above the low pass filter frequency will be cut away. Okay, that's it for the Output Crossover Limiter tab.